Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President, and I rise to contribute to this debate. And could I just put a bit of history in here, Mr Acting Deputy President? I congratulate the Assistant Treasurer, the Honourable Josh Frydenberg, for bringing forward this legislation to right the wrong put on the Australian people by the previous government. It's important to note that since around 1911 this country has had provisions to allow the transfer of unclaimed funds to the government. That's how long it's been around. These provisions stop accounts being eroded by fees and charges, but even after they are transferred, the funds still remain the property of the rightful owner. For 100 years the rule existed that the accounts must have been inactive for at least 7 years before funds could be transferred to the Commonwealth. Let me expand on that account being inactive. If, for example, you had $500 in a bank account, when interest was paid in each month, or fees and charges were taken out each month, and there was no other transaction, then it is still inactive. You must actually put some money into the account or withdraw some money out of the account every 7 years. Now, in 2011-12, when inactive accounts were only transferred after 7 years, only $70 million in unclaimed funds were transferred to ASIC. In 2012-13, after the previous government reduced the required period of inactivity to 3 years, from 7 years down to 3 years, 156,000 accounts worth around $550 million was transferred to ASIC, a total of $550 million, up from $70 million. Mr Acting Deputy President, in 2013-14, almost 40,000 accounts worth around $145 million were transferred to ASIC, and in 2014-15, a further estimated $162 million was transferred to the government, or to ASIC. Without changing the required period of inactivity, Treasury had assumed that an approximate equal number and value of accounts would be transferred to the government each year. The rapid growth in the number of unclaimed accounts highlighted problems with the treatment of children's accounts and foreign currency accounts. Accounts that had been set aside for a child to access when they turned 18 were being transferred to the government, and therefore the account wasn't accruing interest, except when the government did get the money, you received the bond rate when you claimed it back, a very low rate of interest. Now, Mr Acting Deputy President, take a young couple, working away, both of them, they've got 2 young children. They might get a tax return. Let's say they get a tax return of $5,000. They said, OK, we'll put this $5,000 away in a fixed deposit account for the children's education when they get older. Well, after 7 years, they would have to under the previous rules, they would have to either add some more money to it or take some money out of it. As I said, the interest accrued or the fees taken out does not mean the account is active. It is still inactive. So wouldn't it be great after about 8 years they go to their account and they say, well, it hadn't been active, that's how the law used to be, their money would be gone to us and they'd have to get it back. But the previous government reduced that to 3 years. I know for a fact that I was handling my mother's money then, my late mother's money as power of attorney. Thank you to Westpac. My mother had a fixed account of some $8,000 or $9,000. Westpac wrote to me and said, you must put some money in this account by such and such a date, or remove some money from the account, or the money will disappear. Thank you, Westpac, for that notification. I went and deposited a small bit of money in my mother's account, and that kept me going for another 3 years without having to worry about it. However, I shouldn't have to do it. It should be the 7-year period. Now, it's amazing how this was brought in by the previous government. For what reason? The reason was simple: to get money into the coffers. To get money into the coffers of Treasury, and this, of course, was the then Treasurer, Mr Swan, alongside his Finance Manager, Senator Wong, and the then Assistant Finance Manager, one Mr Bill Shorten MP. Now, what a crazy situation that you have to steal the money off the Australian people after 3 years if the account is laid idle, steal the money to help fix the bottom line of your budget. I said, Mr Acting Deputy President, it was about $70 million a year in active accounts, taken out after 7 years so that the fees did not erode the account down to zero. And so that climbed from $70 million to around $550 million. Now, Mr Acting Deputy President, This was wrong in all principle. I remember Senator Bushby when he asked a question to Senator Cormann, Finance Minister, a few months ago. Why are we doing this? And we're doing this to take it back to the status quo as it has been for over 100 years, since 1911, since the formation of the Commonwealth Bank, and not a situation where if you leave your account idle for 3 years, you go to it and there's nothing there. I had pensioners come to me. They had some money on fixed deposit. They phoned my office. They said, the money's gone. What do I do? Where did it go? We had to tell them to go through the process. When I raised this in the joint party room some time back, I said this is wrong in all principle for what we in the coalition believe in, that you must rely on stealing the money, and I underline stealing, that's what it is, stealing the money off people in Australia to help your bottom line budget. Mr Russell Matheson MP made another good point while we discussed this in the party room. He said there's an industry started up, an industry that will go out there and say, oh, you lost your money, it's been taken, pay me $2,000 and I'll get your money back. People were preying on the pensioners, the kids' accounts, to make money out of it. That is wrong. It is wrong in everything we believe in. And so I was very pleased to hear this announcement where this would be changed back, so that people, when they put their money in their accounts, they at least have 7 years. And I encourage all the banks, and I'm sure most of them, or perhaps all of them do, when the accounts are being idle for some time, to write to their customers to inform them of the situation. And once again, I thank Westpac for doing exactly that, writing to me about the management of my mother's accounts. Now, the Information Commissioner raised concerns about the potential for identity theft using currently published information. For example, some businesses are also using this information to charge fees as high as 25% to reunite people with their own money. That was the industry I was saying, Mr Acting Deputy President, had kicked off. Now, by removing the requirement for ASIC to publish the Unclaimed Money Gazette and introducing secrecy provisions in this bill to restrict freedom of information requests, generally to an individual's own details, this bill will better protect the privacy of those with unclaimed accounts. The bill will generate regulatory savings of approximately $36 million a year. I'll repeat that. The regulatory savings this bill will save about $36 million a year. This legislation will ensure only funds that are truly forgotten are transferred to ASIC, not those that might sit aside for 3 years. And it will ensure that if an account holder alerts their financial institution to the fact that they are aware of their account in any way prior to their funds being transferred to ASIC, then a transfer will no longer occur. Mr Acting Deputy President, an article in June last year indicated several Labor shadow ministers were privately embarrassed about the policy Mr Shorten introduced. In fact, one Labor frontbencher reportedly compared the bank siphoning policy with the Gillard government's wrong decision to cut welfare payments for thousands of single mothers. In the 2013 National Seniors received numerous emails from members regarding the changes to the timeframe after which accounts are deemed to be inactive. Grave concerns for the vulnerable elderly residents in aged care facilities and for those with neurological degenerative disease were expressed. In its submission to a consultation paper, the Australian Bankers Association said this. You'll be very interested in this, Mr Acting Deputy President. The current period of inactivity, being 3 years, is inappropriate and has caused substantial disruption for banks and their customers. I repeat, banks and their customers. They go on to say, in our experience, the ABA believes that a period of inactivity of 7 years is appropriate and better meets customer expectations and reduce costs and inefficiencies for the banking industry and ASIC. Many accounts tend to no longer be inactive after 7 years, and therefore this is better aligned with the way customers tend to operate their accounts. The ABA said that according to industry estimates, when the regime reduced the period of inactivity from 7 to 3 years, complaints increased by 300%. Complaints each year increased by 300%. The impact of the change was felt across the customer base, including individual, business and institutional banking customers. The ABA told the Financial Systems Inquiry that reverting to 7 years would halve the number of claims. The inquiry recommended that the government should act to ensure bank accounts and life insurance policies are deemed unclaimed after 7 years of inactivity and that these monies should be held in a separate trust account. Mr Acting Deputy President, in summary, I totally support this bill, and I'm glad those opposite do as well. I'm disappointed that the previous speaker from the Greens seems to be saying the Greens will not support it. Well, I don't support government stealing the money off Australian people, and that's exactly what was happening after 3 years under the previous government. Leave your account idle, and 3 years later it's disappeared. It's gone. So what do? What does the elderly pensioner do, especially the ones that are in aged care facilities that perhaps are relying on family members to monitor their accounts like my mother was with me? Go and search for it? Where do they start to search? What are they going to get back? Yeah, a very low rate of bond rate. And as Senator Cormann said in that question from Senator Bushby, who was at the scene of the crime when this stealing started? Finance Minister Senator Wong, Treasurer Mr Wayne Swan, and the current opposition leader Mr Bill Shorten. They were the trio seen running from the scene of the crime. This is wrong, and all principle that each and every Australian should believe in, that a government has no right to steal your money after 3 years, put it back to the status quo that it's been since 1911, and that is 7 years. Give people more time. And as I said, Mr Acting Deputy President, I commend those institutions that actually notify, phone call, ring, write, email to those customers, warning them, they're saying, hey, your term is now getting close to expiry date on the inactive account, which will mean that your money will be taken away. Then the hunt starts to get it back. And as I said, the business has kicked off. She'll be right, mate, give me $2,000, I'll get your money back for you. Bit of paperwork and easy $2,000. But instead of getting the $5,000 back for the customer, they only get $3,000. The smart businessman or woman has taken $2,000 out of it. An industry kicked off to actually go out and siphon money off those people who had their accounts, their money stolen in that period. And so I commend this legislation. I do thank again those opposite for supporting it, going on the speeches already. And this is how it's going to be starting at the end of this year, back to how it had been for more than 100 years prior to the what I call ridiculous changes of the previous government in an effort to try and bring the bottom line of their budget heading somewhere towards surplus, which of course we've never ever seen, and that's been the case all my life. Whenever the Labor Party's in government, we've seen the history of their financial management. And so I welcome this bill, I welcome this legislation. I commend my colleagues, especially Assistant Treasurer Mr Frydenberg, for the work they've done on this and the support of Senator Cormann and Treasurer Mr Joe Hockey, and look forward to the passing of this bill and getting things back to how they were for more than 100 years.
Thank you, Senator.